Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of the 2017 series of webinars by the CBAA, brought to you with the assistance of our good friends at the Community Media Training Organisation. Tonight's webinar, Live and Local Sports Broadcasting on Community Radio. This is a webinar I've been looking forward to presenting for quite some time. Community broadcasting plays a vital role in Australian media, enhancing the diversity of programming choices available to the public. This role extends to our coverage of local sports. It's a great way to strengthen the relationship stations have with their local community. In this session, we're going to learn about how you can build those relationships with local sporting bodies, as well as providing a bit of instruction on how best to package and prepare this content. The presenters that we have for you this evening is Jeff Pistola of the Huddle on Hills Radio 88.9 FM, the voice of the Adelaide Hills, providing community radio to the Adelaide Hills and Mount Barker council areas. The Huddle kicked off in 2012 when Jeff linked up with fellow sports journalist Ben Goldfinch to create a weekly online podcast interviewing high-profile guests from the Adelaide Hills. Since then, the program has connected the local community through sport and has continued to showcase the many talented sports people that abound in the hills. That's Jeff Pistola. Another one of our presenters this evening, a gentleman I'm very happy to have on board with this, is Professor Peter Fray, who's the Professor of the Practice of Journalism at the School of Communication at UTS. Peter is one of the country's most experienced and innovative media professionals. He's a former editor or editor-in-chief of the Sydney Morning Herald, the Sun Herald, the Canberra Times and the Sunday Age. Peter has lived the reality of the digital revolution that's forever changed the way journalism is practiced, received and distributed. He's the coordinator of the UTS Sports Media course, which is a new course that equips students with the skills, techniques and knowledge to build a career across multiple areas of sports journalism, administration, public relations and communications. And our last presenter for the evening is Jeff Pistola. Oh no, we've already announced him. It's Davey J, rather, of the Big G Up on 2XX. As stated, that program was the winner of the Troy Garner Award for Sports Broadcasting at the 2016 CBAA conference, the CBAA Awards rather. It's 2XX is Canberra's longest running community station. The Big G Up has been billed as the connective tissue linking the skeleton of sport to the muscle of music with the community at its heart. The Big G Up was conceived to provide community sports associations, entities and participants with much needed exposure that they were missing out on through mainstream media avenues. And the program plays a crucial role in providing a community service to local sports people and fans. And with that, Davey, I am going to make your mic live. Are you there, mate? Hello.
What we're all
Davey
about.
J. He's there.
Hello, I am here.
Excellent,
Can you hear me
mate.
now?
I can hear you now.
Excellent.
Now, I've got your slides here, so I will just open that up now. And
No worries.
whenever you want me to click through a slide, please just let me know.
Yep.
I'll be more than happy to do that.
No problems.
Here we go. Come on, Davey, slides, open up. I don't want people to see my all the things on there that are so very, very incriminating.
Excellent. Well, while you're doing that, I'd just like to say thanks for the opportunity to connect with the CBAA through the webinars to share some of my experiences over the last couple of years, especially in the sporting arena.
Oh, mate, it is our pleasure to have you here. Now, hopefully everyone is seeing your first slide on the screen now.
Excellent. Well, let's kick off. The Big G Up, basically, we're bringing Canberra sport into the studio. The Big G Up, if you want to change the slide, we'll give you a bit of background about the show itself.
There we go. Okay.
Yep.
Is that second slide showing up, mate?
So there we go. So the Big G Up is... Yep, I've got it now. All good. So, yeah, so the Big G Up, it's an all-sports radio program on 2XX 98.3 FM in Canberra. It's broadcast live on Saturday mornings from 8:30am to 10am, so 90 minutes is a fair while to sort of fill. We started originally as a 1-hour program, and once we realised that we could fill the 90 minutes, it became so much easier for us to, map it out, schedule, and really make a full and varied show. We've been on air since 2014, so going into our third year, full year this year. And it is hosted and produced, well, by me. Basically, it's just me on my own. I tell everyone that comes into the studio as a guest host that, make it sound like it's a bigger operation than it probably is. But then I just remind them that it's me. So It's just me out there doing my little bit for the community. No regular guest host, but like I said, we try and make it very familiar for people each and every week so they can drop in, find their favourite segments and go from there. As it was alluded to at the beginning, the Big G Up was conceived to provide a platform for community sports associations, teams, clubs and individuals to promote themselves and their sport to a wider audience. We noticed that in Canberra, as it would be across many different media environments and areas, they concentrated on the national sports. Your AFL would always be big, your NRL would always be big, your top line netball and so on, and your basketball. But some of those smaller individual sports at that community level were missing out on opportunities. There's so many tournaments, events and stars and juniors coming through. We thought this would be a perfect opportunity for the people of Canberra to hear about the sports people of Canberra and the clubs and associations as well. So that's where it sort of came about as well. A bit of background on myself. I'm not a broadcast journalist. I'm not a sports person in so much in the media. Basically, I'm a guy who plays sport. I've been involved in rugby for 20 odd years. I coach, I play basketball, I play broom ball. I do so many other different things and bits and pieces. I've played every sort of sport. I've done a little bit of media here and there. I was a ground announcer at the Brumbies for a few years. I've been the ground announcer at a few other places, and hopefully that'll continue. And I've emceed lots of other sporting events. I was the courtside announcer for the Canberra Heat over the last couple of years, and that's all come about by me getting better at what I do. But certainly don't have any major media training or journalist training. I'm just someone who loves sport and loves basically dribbling about sport. So it's all worked out fairly well being on a community radio station. Moving to the next slide.
There we go. It's clicked over on my end. There could be a couple of seconds lag. Sorry, Davey.
Yeah, it's all good here. So basically what we try to do at the Big G, we strive to have a guest host in the studio each week. And we draw them from community sporting associations, clubs or teams. Otherwise, it's just me doing what I do, and it gets a little bit boring and samey after a while, but we like to get the people in there. We've only ever, over the last 3 years, we've only ever had maybe 3 or 4 people that have doubled up. Associations, but that's in line with some of their big events that have come in. We like to balance our talk element of sport with music. I'm a music lover as well. We like to think of it as a meeting of sport and music and sport, and we have a regular segment or semi-regular segment about sports people who are musicians and musicians who play sport. We try and find the connection between those two pursuits and pastimes as well. Sometimes we theme base our music as well. So if we have touch football on, we play songs with touch in it or about touching. Can't touch this, all that kind of stuff. To have a bit of a theme running through the show. So that's always good fun. And we always make sure we have a good mix of international, national, and most importantly, local music. So we try and have a bit of a formula where we have at least 20% local music each and every show. Each show is bookended with a scores and results segment, and that's drawn from various sources, local newspapers, local websites, and all that kind of stuff to find out. And again, it tries to cover as many sports as we can, and we bookend that with an upcoming events. Again, what's coming up, round 11 of the local basketball, big games of the Raiders, or whatever else is happening around town for people to get out there. Sometimes we have a phone interview mid-show, which breaks it up, and it's a nice little bit of variation. But again, technology plays its part there. If the phone's working, we do it. If we don't, well, we just keep going and carry on. We often have giveaways and other listener engagement activities. A lot of the prizes we sort of source ourselves, books, second-hand books, sporting books, those kind of things, little bits and pieces we give away. So that's always fun, a little bit of fun to give stuff away in regards to that. Footy cards are always good. They seem to go like hotcakes there as well. And we tend to utilise the station resources in our Facebook to promote upcoming guests and events. The beauty of our show, and the reason why we called it the Big G Up, is we're the only ones on Facebook. Bit of Google action, bit of Facebook action, found out we were the only ones. So if you're ever looking for something different to listen to or find out about, just punch in the Big G Up and you'll find us. That's a really good bonus for us in that regard. We're not going to get confused with anybody else. Just moving to the next slide now. Where are we? There we go. In terms of linking with the community sporting groups, the Big G Up works best when it can showcase the passion of its guests. So it's important to connect with local sporting organisations, associations and clubs. In the first instance, we will talk to associations. If they can't come in representing the whole sport, then we'll move to individual clubs within that sport. and then individuals accordingly to find appropriate guests. We haven't had too much pushback by anyone. A couple of times we've had to rearrange some times or slots and that kind of stuff, or a couple of times a few people have changed it out, but we found that associations are very keen to talk about their sport, their competition, what they have coming up and that kind of stuff. So we'd like to cover topics such as the guest's personal sporting history, the sporting association's history in Canberra, the achievements, how people can register and how they can participate in the sport as well. We'd like to talk about upcoming tournaments or events. We also like to probe a little bit into the diversity side of stuff and equality, if they have programs for athletes with disabilities or avenues there, multiculturalism, multicultural aspects and that kind of stuff. A big thing we like to do is if there's a sport that has both a male and a female component to it, we like to get the perspective of both sides there as well, so we come in there as well. So that makes it a pretty, holistic sort of approach in regards to that. We talk about representative pathways and coaching development as well, junior development and competitions, officiating, people getting into refereeing as well, because that's also an important factor of any sport. Without the referees, you can't have a sport, and if you do, sometimes it's a little bit hokey, but the thing is to make sure that the referees are supported, and because they're recruiting as well all the time as well. And the other important thing we like to chat about is the strategic development plans of the sport themselves. Perfect example is we've got basketball ACT, they're just building some 3-on-3 courts. Apparently they're the first and only ones of their kind. Designated courts for that in the Southern Hemisphere, I believe. So that's pretty good. So hearing about those things coming up and those opportunities makes it really exciting. In terms of tips and that kind of stuff, we don't do a lot of outside broadcasting, so I'll leave that to Pistols if he jumps on here and talks about that. Some of the other people on how to do that. I can talk a little bit later if there's any questions about some of the sporting announcing and that kind of stuff. I've also had an opportunity to do some sports commentary for another organisation this year or last 12 months, 18 months. If at the end we have questions about that, I'm happy to answer that. But just personally what I've noticed, and it's basically learning on the run. Like I said, I don't have any formal training, but I am able to, I've picked a lot of stuff up and refined what I've done. So the tips that I can impart to people out there are as follows. Do your research, basically. That was the first and foremost thing. I went on, I think it was the Thursday, I saw an advertisement for radio host or radio announcer training in the local street press magazine at 2XX. It was Saturday that the training started. They said, if you let us know by Monday afternoon, you'll go into the draw for it, or you'll go into we'll basically be considered for a show. Come Friday, sorted through, trying to work out what I did the training. Sunday afternoon I came up with sport. Monday I did all my research between then and the first show, and basically we came up with over 60 associations to approach sporting associations before we'd even press play on anything. So we were really up and running. We had all of the details of contact numbers, emails, and that kind of stuff. So we were right for the next 12 to 24 months, and we've just been ticking them off essentially all the way through. So I'm not even at the end of that list yet. So that. Doing your research first up to see if it's out there and it's viable. Also, research-wise, 2XX had a soccer program. That was the only other sports show. They didn't have an all-sports program. In Canberra, the only other station that has an all-sports program is the ABC at the moment. So all of a sudden, we're filling a niche that needed to be filled. So just being aware of the surroundings, that kind of stuff. You don't want to saturate the airwaves with the same thing. The other thing that I've learned over this time is keep it tight. Ensure the structure of your show is workable and not too complicated. You don't want to be jumping around too much, especially in that hour and a half when you just want it to flow well, hiccups down to a bare minimum, mistakes down to a bare minimum. I allow myself one a show, which isn't too bad. If I do more than one, I get a bit poopy, but we make up for it the next week. So good flow helps both the announcer and the listener as well. You don't want to be jumping around, with random things too much and to distract people. Get your guests involved early. We like to get our guests to assist in reading the results in the very first segment. So after our introduction and our first song, we introduce them straight away, because if it's just me doing it, it could be 10, 15 minutes before they actually get introduced properly and they get to talk. And I found that it helps ease their nerves and makes them feel part of the show straight away. So all of a sudden they're invested in doing a good job. They've got it all out. They've started. They've whatever they needed to do out of the way nice and early, and they're right to go for the main part when they get to talk about their passion. The other thing I suggest is keep up to date. Try and keep abreast of local results via social media or websites. This helps when interviewing guests, and it is hard work. I spend several hours during the week combing through competitions to make sure I've got a good spread of results and upcoming events, and want to make sure that they are as up to date as possible. I don't want to give old news, and I want to try and make sure everything's right. And plus, if you've got a bit of an idea of what's happening in the sport, then it helps you talk to your guests about where they want to go and what they want to take on from there. So that's another tip. Just over to the next slide. You want to sell your show. That's the one thing I can say. When you're approaching associations, sell your show and what you're trying to achieve. You know, your enthusiasm will really rub off and demonstrate to guests you have the passion for what you are doing and also for what they are doing. If you're sitting there going, oh, look, yeah, I got a radio show, yeah, it's no big deal, whatever, they're going to go, oh, well, if he's not enthused about his own show, then we're not enthusiastic about joining it. So if you can get them on board early, tell them what you do, explain who you've had on, explain what you want to do for them, and go from there. Really sell your program and your benefits. You know, little things like the recent CBAA award was not a little thing, it's a big thing, and I've been selling it to people from here on in that we're the best state, we're the best community sporting program in the nation, and people have really responded to that because they know that you're working with somebody that knows what they're doing, who has a passion for it, and want to go on and, you know, really help them get to where they're going as well. Another thing is following up. When approaching associations, follow up and keep in contact. Don't just send one email or, you know, say I'll call back whenever. Make sure you work with them to provide the best opportunity to showcase what they are about. You get a few knockbacks or a few missed calls or whatever, keep calling, keep coming back, make it happen, because in the end it will be to your benefit. Have a backup plan is another one when you're getting prepared, because if you can't source guests, you should have a few ideas in mind for a sporting related show. Whether it's a history of Boxing Day sporting events, which we did a few years ago. We also included in that one our resident Northern English commentator, or he tries to be a commentator, Alfie Noakes. He was actually sent out to the Boxing Day sales, added a little bit of colour. He commentated that and was pretty high value in terms of that. We've also done an all-English focused program for the Queen's birthday, English results, English music, Australia v England, Ashes Test, all of that kind of stuff. We've gone through that. And upcoming on Australia Day, timely, we're up to our 3rd annual Dribble Fest, where we discussed national sporting teams and how we're going to go this year, or how we're going to go this year, how we went last year, and that kind of stuff. So we have some of the best dribblers that I know come and join us on the show. But it's important to have something in your back pocket, because there's nothing worse than sitting there and basically just lost for something to talk about. So use your structure to get there, have a backup plan, find a common thing that you can talk about and make it happen. Be professional. I'm not talking just about on air, but with the way that you talk to your guests and help them get settled and comfortable. Make sure you prep your guests, explain how the show runs, when you need them to do things, what's happening. We're coming back in a few seconds. We're just going to play some music after that, and keep helping them and making sure that they're relaxed, because they are the stars of your show. Go that extra yard to ensure they're comfortable on air and included in all proceedings. Now, one of the things that I really helped was asking your friends. Basically, I know a lot of people in the sport who play sport at various levels. It's really important, because not many sports broadcasters would have no contacts whatsoever. I couldn't imagine too many people doing a sports program going in having no idea about sport or what to do, or playing sport themselves. Whether it's your mate from the pub cricket team, your friend's friend who plays first grade, or even your girlfriend's uncle who just happens to be the president of the local bowls club, use your networks to find those guests and get them involved. And again, they'll enjoy themselves. You'll find and meet some really interesting people just by leaning on your friends and asking around in that regard. And on to our final slide, a couple more tips for you out there. Be entertaining. I mean, it sounds like it's hard work, but it isn't. You know, nothing guarantees listeners switching off more than just boring banter and endless in-jokes. Mix it up, play some music, do a couple of segments, pre-recorded segments. Like I said, Alfie Noakes comes in occasionally and does some stuff. Setting up, we had the girls from Elements Rhythmic Gymnastics come in last year, and during the breaks we had them doing a hula hoop competition. So while we were playing music, they were doing hula hoops just to see how long they would go. We'd time them and see how many they did. Magic of radio was that they were sitting there laughing, but when they came back, they played in. So yeah, just break it up. Use the magic of radio to get out there and be a little bit entertaining, a bit different, and make sure the way you present the show doesn't wear out its welcome. Most importantly, be yourself, okay? A lot of people would use Roy HG, some of the other big name programs that they've heard over the years as a bit of a basis. I reckon the guys in Victoria and South Australia would have some commercial radio football programs that would all their banter and being blokey and that kind of stuff. Pinch some ideas there, but mould your show to your own personality. Be enthusiastic about sharing your passion. And one thing, don't be ashamed to share your favourite music as well. It doesn't matter if it's Rod Stewart, Engelbert Humperdinck, whoever. Listeners will respond better to your show if you let them connect with you. And most importantly, and the one tip that I can certainly have to anybody who's getting into community radio, relax and have fun. Don't be too uptight about it. It's community radio after all, so a flub here or a bumble there shouldn't derail your show. Recover with a laugh and keep on going. So there's some tips there to help people present their own radio show, to connect with community sporting programs, and basically, yeah, just get out there and share your passion, and that's what it's all about. If you want to use it as a launch pad for something better, which I'm trying to do, then do it. But again, it's all about making sure you're servicing your community as well as servicing your own needs. Don't ever let it be something that, you know, you're a slave to as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Davey. Jeff Pistola, I've just made your microphone live. Are you out there?
Yes, Danny. How are you, mate? Sorry we're a bit late here.
That's all right, mate.
Few power problems over here in Adelaide, as you know.
That's fair enough, mate. Well, Davey won the toss anyway, so he went on first. Its screen should be asking you to show up your screen at the moment, if that's flashed up where you are, mate. So if you do a couple of clicks there, and the presentation will be yours, good sir. And then, of course, following Jeff Pistola of the Huddle on Hills Radio 88.9 FM, we'll have Professor Peter Fray from the Practice of Journalism School of Communication at UTS. But Pistols, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. We're probably just doing a lot of audio stuff here because of our preparation. Sorry about that. But as I said, my name is Jeff Pistola, presenter from the Huddle with Pistols and Goldie on Hills Radio 88.9 FM in the Adelaide Hills, and it's an honour for me to be invited to participate in this CBAA webinar with the focus on sport. And I guess as a bit of foundation, it's appropriate to give a quick background of how we developed the sporting community radio program in the Adelaide Hills. Myself and I, part of the Benny Goldfinch, had already established a pretty strong working partnership through our roles at the Mount Barker Courier newspaper, with myself as the sports editor and he as a sports reporter. And in 2012, we extended that liaison to producing an original sports-based offering, which we called The Huddle, as a 30-minute online podcast. And in the program, we tried to introduce the concept of Adelaide Hills sports through interviews and profiling high-profile local sports and athletes. The program actually built up a bit of a cult following, and as such, when Hills Radio was in the stages of its formation, we tended an interest towards the station of creating and producing and providing a sporting element for the fledgling station. Thus, in February 2015, we hit the airways with a 2-hour sports-orientated show, retaining the name of The Huddle. Each Wednesday evening, and on the encouragement of the station management, we also added calling the HFL Hills Football League AFL match of the round each Saturday from April through to the grand final in September. In 2016, the programs continued, with the live football broadcast becoming very popular, including being streamed online both interstate and overseas. And during 2017, this coming season, there are also plans for our outside broadcasts to be combined with recorded footage of the game, which will be screened later in the week through internet television. Like any region, sport plays a very strong and important link in the community, and our ambition was to supply the Adelaide Hills with its own sporting coverage. While the area has supplied more than its share of people who have achieved significantly on the state, national and international stage, the achievements of the local sporting fraternity is held paramount on our agenda. Although everyone has their high elite heroes, there certainly is a large grassroots following for local heroes, as you know, in any sport. There is also a significant need for the promotion and recognition of various individuals and teams in many diverse sports, which often do not receive much coverage within the so-called wider stream media. Generally, local people love their local sport and follow it with a passion, so why not this local community radio station provides the best possible coverage that it can. We've tried to make our Huddle sports show as entertaining as possible, interviewing a number of local sports stars and showcasing their achievements or milestones, together with a blend of Hills sports people who have gone on to perform well at a higher level of competition. Among our diverse guests have been an Olympic gold medalist, multiple world champion MotoGP engineer, a Test cricketer, AFL footballers, state and national team members and leading sporting officials, ranging from Lady Gridiron League players, roller derby girls, and little promoted sports such as archery, petanque, darts and billiards. To us, if it has an interesting sporting angle within our community, it's worth covering in the Huddle. Our coverage of local football has certainly generated plenty of interest, with clubs very interested in hosting us for outside broadcasts, which have also enabled us to profile that particular club with pre-match interviews with club committee people, coaches, players and past champions. We generally promote the game through the round through the local newspaper and preceding radio advertising, together with a large banner placed at the ground entrance each Saturday, advising patrons they can tune their car radio to 88.9 FM to listen to the live broadcast, while of course it can be streamed overseas. And in the past couple of years we've actually had listeners in the USA, Greece, Bali and of course interstate. We've also found that a number of injured players have readily made themselves available to offer on-air comments and insight during the course of the coverage, which generally runs from 2 to 5 p.m. each Saturday. The venture into outside broadcast...
Pistol, sorry to stop you there for a minute. Just while there was nothing going on the screen, I thought I'd get the Hills Radio website up at the moment. When you want me to switch back over to you, just let us know, mate.
All right, mate. Yep.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
All right. The venture into the outside broadcast has not been without its challenges, as anyone involved in live radio will attest, with sometimes equipment gremlins with transponders and microphones testing your metal, but thankfully we've all been able to overcome a few interesting issues and still provide a high standard product. No doubt many of you participating tonight carry similar loves, that of sport and also being able to extend that through a love of being part of community radio. While we've obviously been influenced by some great radio and TV commentators, as Davey was saying previously, it's important to provide your own slant and attitude towards the coverage. No frills, give the people what they want. Grassroots sport, news, views and personalities, but above all, make it entertaining. Also try to do your homework on the subject, be it a guest interview or calling the game. We may be covering community sport, but those listening soon pick up if you're a bit of a doer and not really sure of what you're talking about. Like many aspects of life, preparation makes for success. Keep up to date with team changes, team form, and a good stat never goes amiss. Live is always interesting, promoting sport in general. Break up segments with music, as Davey said, as we do in the Huddle. Always let the listener know what's going on in case they come in late. Therefore, if you're interviewing someone over a 10-minute period, come back or use a segue to reintroduce the person that you're interviewing. Make the program streamlined, don't dribble-drabble, and to the point. Probe your guests, enjoy a lot of soda, as Davey said, what makes them tick. I think when we first got involved with this, obviously we've been involved in watching a lot of sport on TV, as I mentioned. Ask the question. I always think of ask the questions the audience might want you, what they might want to ask the guest themselves, the insight that people want to know. Particularly what we do up here in the Hills, guys who've gone on to play at AFL or at high international levels in their chosen sport, but always bring back their grassroots level, whether they played for the local club, how they started, who were some of their influences. Because in a community radio situation such as in a community like the Hills, everyone seems to know each other within a huge radius. So they'd be interested to know that Joe Bloggs, who went on to do such and such, or runner-up in the Brownlow medal, or played in the AFL Premiership, he was actually a member of a particular club, and guys they might know actually gave him his first chance in the under-8s or whatever. So as I said, spread the light, give the insight that people want to know. Local links are very important, we've found, as I said, in the community radio, bring the community into it. And if you get the opportunity in community broadcasting, as I said, bring the people what they want. One of our great moments this year was a football team up here won their first premiership in 35 years. So not only after calling the game, Goldie and myself were able to go out with the transportable equipment and get amongst the throng, and you can imagine the emotion that was going on there. Like I said, 35 years, and we were able to get access as they presented the premiership medallions and the shields and everything on the ground. We were able to get there and capture that emotion by interviewing the coach, the players, the captains, some of the officials, trainers who'd been there since the year dot. So as I said, bring that real community feel and the real aspect of this is something great for a particular community. So as I said, in general, share the passion over the airways, because being there you could actually feel the passion through our coverage, and I'm sure a lot of people who couldn't make it listen, and we've had actually compliments on it, and they've actually married up the coverage of the grand final on a video with our coverage of the on the audio. So that was a great honour for us too, because we tried to bring the as I said, you've got to paint a picture in community radio or any radio, particularly when you're calling the footy. So yeah, but as Davey said, be yourself. Pre-recorded situations are very good where you can't get the people into the studio. We thrive on obviously getting people live and in there. But yeah, make the program streamlined. Enjoy what you're doing, because I think that's what we all do. Share the passion of sport, which we all do. And yeah, as I said, for all those out there wishing to get involved in community sport, or you're already doing it, keep it up. We're doing a good job, because we do actually bring something. We can all pick up the newspapers and read about the the higher grades of footy or netball or whatever, but in a local community, everyone loves you. I just have to look at the crowds that actually go to community sporting events during on a Saturday or a Sunday, and there's no better way than that. Just shows you the support. And as I said, us starting up this community radio program, sporting coverage in the Adelaide Hills, has been a real winner, and we look forward to doing it for a few more years yet. So yeah, that's about it from me, Danny.
Thanks very much, Peter. Pistols. I'll just get you to stick around before we have question time. Peter Fray, your mic is now live. I will just give you access to the visual component of the webinar. As stated, Peter is the Professor of the Practice of Journalism at the School of Communication at the University of Technology here in Sydney, providing a very valuable perspective. It's great to have the internal community radio perspective from both Davey J and Pistols, but equally valuable to have Professor Peter Fray here. Now, hopefully the notification has shown up on your screen saying, do you give permission for us to look at your screen? So just waiting for that to come up at the moment, Peter.
It hasn't actually, Danny, but if I happily talk. Yeah, okay, I'm waiting for it.
Okay.
But I'm happy to, thank you for letting me on the show.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful to have you here. I think it was quite the coup that we were able to get you involved here for this session. Now, your screen, I'll let you continue talking. I'll just switch it back to my screen, then back to you. And so hopefully it'll show up for you in a second. There we go. Should be making you the new presenter.
My screen, yeah.
But as stated, Davey, J and Pistols will be sticking around until the question time that will be taking place after Peter presents. Thanks very much, everyone. Obviously, a couple of technical difficulties tonight, but you're all in community radio, so you're well aware of how that goes. Is it giving you the notification yet, Peter?
I wonder whether... We're saying I'm clicking on my screen. It's still saying showing main screen.
Okay. I'm getting waiting to show your screen.
Will I just talk?
Yes, mate. That might be the best for the time being.
Okay.
Yeah, if you just want to have a fiddle about it, there might be a sort of a... there we go.
Let's sort this out. But then, Danny, thank you so much.
Oh, you were live there for a second, mate.
You got it?
I did have it there for a second. I saw a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, you should have it now.
Okay, it should show up in a second then. But please kick it right off.
You should have... Yes, so Danny, thanks for having me. And look, I'll tell you what, listening to Davey and Pistols, in a way, makes what I was about to say even more relevant. And it was wonderful listening to those guys talk about something that's so real and speaking with such passion. And let's face it, knowledge of what they do. I thought they were both terrific, and thank you guys, you were terrific. Because I'd like to get up in the helicopter for a second and just think about what Davey and Pistols were saying in a kind of broader context. And I think we all know that so much of sport these days, the rights for broadcast have been bought. All the big sporting codes, domestic and international, are increasingly very valuable properties, and they're often actually owned by the codes themselves. And we've seen that, in this country, started with the AFL and it's moved to most of the other codes, and that's given those codes and the relationship they have with with commercial broadcasters and the ABC a lot more power. And I think as a fan of sport and someone who watches a lot of sport, you've noticed over the last few years the restrictions that if you're not one of the owners of that sports rights, you have. And that, I mean, I remember, so, a few years ago when I was editor of the Sydney Morning Herald, we weren't allowed to broadcast or show much of the Olympic Games, and so we had to find new ways of doing it. And since then, that's gone on and on. So I think the average fan is, obviously it's all part of turning sport into one big commercial thing, into an entertainment monolith, in much the same way as Hollywood is, say. And so, and that's happening, and I don't think that's stoppable, and I'm not necessarily riling against it per se, but I think what it does is put what community radio can do in a really sharp focus to that. And what I think Davey and Pistols were talking about, if you're getting a bit highfalutin, but it's really about community values and things that are at the core of our society, about connecting people and not making a buck out of it, and in touching people in multiple ways, at the time when they are free from work-a-day problems and paying the mortgage and all those things that stress us all out, and celebrate the beauty of sport. So I think what community radio has in that respect then is really valuable. Not necessarily in a monetary way, although we could talk a little bit about how these guys make money out of it, because I think there's some interesting things to say about that. But what we're really talking about is community radio becoming increasingly the place where the fan has a voice. And a lot of the sporting codes around the world and in this country spend incredible amount of time, effort, and money trying to work out what they call the fan's journey. The fan's journey, how they take, a boy like my son, who's now 11, soccer mad, and they keep him and turn him into a fee-paying member of an A-League club, and et cetera, and they spend a lot of time thinking about that. Of course, what community radio has is that in spades, and they didn't spend a cent on it. So I think the great thing, the great tip I have really, in a sense, is not to underestimate the power you have, not only to be the fan's friend, which of course you are, because they're your mates half the time, but also to be the fan's voice, because the truth of it is, as we all know, true fans of any club, know lots of things, and they are great sources of stories. They actually often know things before they're officially announced. They have interesting opinions, sometimes a bit crazy, but who cares in a way. They are actually this incredible resource that the commercial sector spends literally millions trying to get hold of, and you guys actually have them. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And just to think about that for a little bit, because I think there's a lot of things that could be done with the fan. So the fan these days, of course, can be reached and be part of the community and part of your community through social media. So the Facebook page becomes very powerful. Other forms of social media become very powerful ways of maintaining and growing the relationship with the fan. And I think, again, I don't think it would. Community radio and social media go hand in hand. Very much so in these days, and you should also be not scared to try different things and use different channels, because you'll be surprised how many of your fans can be engaged, for instance, on Instagram or Snapchat, as well as Facebook and Twitter. So and other social media. So I think there's try and experiment around reaching fans in different ways with different things that you do on different channels. So Instagram, for instance, is heavily picture-driven, so I would put pictures and video on Instagram, quick grab snaps, what have you, put on Snapchat, deeper forums, of course, in Facebook. Because all this is really about growing your fan base and growing the fan as the as both the loyal listener, but also probably the best source of your stories. And I kind of, Davey and Pistols have both said that much more eloquently in a way than I have, but I just think listening to them, it really goes to show, I think there's a real divergent here. You have big corporate media, big commercial stations, and the ABC, to a lesser extent, also scrambling over big, sporting rights, and they're worth much, much more. And, I love sport, so I want sport to have that money. But at the same time, I don't want the fan to be left out of the equation.
Excellent. Oh, look, Peter.
So I don't know if we are seeing my screen. Are we or not?
Yes, we're seeing your screen.
I'm sorry, that was my 5 cents worth. But okay, so and why I'm talking about the fans in part is because Davey and Pistols have inspired me, but also because I think when we went about setting up this new course in sports media, we had very much in mind that one of the great challenges for sporting associations, sporting codes, and sporting media is to be part of the fans' journey. Because the other part of social media, of course, is that the fans can do it for themselves. And that's true of all media these days, that you can certainly see the rise of the citizen fan or the citizen journalist that doesn't actually need the media to help them. And again, I think community radio has a great opportunity in that. So anyway, when we set up this course, we were thinking about various people who might want to do it. So we thought about retiring athletes, for instance, people in sports, and people who were just simply fans, obviously journalists who wanted to specialize, other people in communications roles, which are not necessarily journalistic. And so as a result of that, we've created a course that is, we think, the only one of its kind in Sydney, and it builds on the media contacts that I have, that my team has. The ABC broadcaster Tracy Holmes is going to be a key part of this course, and she's very passionate, as I'm sure you all know, about the role of the fan, but also, she's a very well-connected person. And we also think that to get a full picture of what the sports industry is now, you need to have the skills of the journalists, and you also need to learn some basic and strategic communication skills that aren't necessarily journalistic. And you also need to have a bit of business, because as I've just been saying, and as we all know, sport is very much a business. So that's why we've got a very much a sort of hybrid course that is going to build on a relationship that UTS has, and is a growing relationship with the Sydney Cricket Ground Trust. And hopefully, probably not this year, but possibly next year, we'll have our own building out at the SCG to really cement what we do across various things in sport. So we also have sport medicine and sports business as well as sports media. So we very much see sport as a place that we want to be, but we also see it as very much a place where, if you like, there is a raw expression of community, and we want to be part of that, because we think we're very much part of the community of Sydney and the community of New South Wales and the country. So essentially there are six subjects in this new diploma. 3 of them are essentially communication subjects, 2 of them are journalistic subjects, and 1 of them is a business subject. So digital sports journalism and sports media, and then some basic communications strategies, because a lot of journalists these days, as we all know, spend some time in journalism, and then they may use those skills in PR or other communication roles. As we all know that jobs in journalism aren't as easy to find as they once were. So we're trying to give people a very broad appreciation. And I think that still goes back to understanding community. One of the things we're doing, we have a link with 2SER, and one of the things we're doing with 2SER is we're bringing in an American idea called Hearken, which some of the people listening may have heard of. And Hearken is really just a very simple way of getting the community to say what they want to know about, then putting those questions out to a vote, and then doing a story of the one that gets voted the most. And it's proved very successful in the United States, but it's also being used by the ABC in Canberra. I think called Curious Canberra, which I think Davey probably would know a little bit about as well. And I think things like, you don't have to have a thing called Harken, of course, but I think things like that engage community and their questions are the lifeblood of what we're talking about tonight.
Hello, have you just dropped out there, Peter? Hello, Peter, you there? Oh.
No, that's all right. I was just pausing for a... Yeah, I'm good.
Sorry.
You know, if I could say, you asked Danny for a few tips and a few ideas. It's one of the things that I say to anyone who's interested in journalism, and the same really applies to what we're talking about tonight. And Danny and Pistols have kind of hinted at it. Is there's really only two words you really need to keep in mind, and one is be curious. Be very curious. Be always curious. Be always asking questions. You may not always get answers, but if you keep asking questions, you're going to get something. For instance, you know, I was talking to Tracy Holmes today, and she reminded me about a story that we were talking about a couple of days ago. You know, what's the difference between a red ball and a pink ball in cricket? And, you know, do they act differently? And pink balls are softer. The leather on the color makes a difference. And you know, you just need to keep asking the questions, because eventually you're going to get a great answer to that, and there's a great story in just simply asking that question. And the other key word I say is persistence. So I think Pistols in particular mentioned this. You know, the idea of, yes, you'll get knockbacks, of course you will, and some people will say, well, why should I go on your show? Well, I'm sure you've got some great answers to that anyway. But if you keep calling and keep asking politely, I think in my experience, most people, from the Prime Minister down, will take your call and come on your show. So I think persistence and curiosity are the two great qualities of journalism and, in a sense, by extension, broadcasting. And I think a few other things that were said, you know, are very, very, very opposite to what we're talking about. You know, have fun, absolutely have fun, and be yourself. There's no point pretending to be Roy and HG if you're not Roy and HG, and besides, we've heard a lot of Roy and HG over the years, so bless them, but, you know, we don't necessarily need another one. And be yourself and be, you know, be very human, because I think the great quality of radio is it's in your head, and it's really a conversation between you and the listener, and it's a conversation that is repeated. You know, that no one conversation you're having when you're talking on the radio is the same, because everyone is receiving what I'm saying now slightly differently. And so you're having a conversation, a one-to-many conversation, just by sticking the earphones on and speaking into the microphone. And that's a very powerful thing. But it's also a very special thing, as I'm sure everyone who's listening tonight knows that. So have fun and you know, let your voice know that you're having fun as well, because I've seen lots of journalism students who think they have to sound like something out of the, you know, 1950s ABC or something because they're now on the radio. Well, as long as you speak clearly and correctly, no, you don't have to sound like, you know, the Queen. You actually, or, you know, the early broadcasters. You actually, people respond to people who are themselves, and if you can't be yourself on community radio, then where can you be? So I would say also that out there in the community, there are hundreds of stories. Every caller you have, every person you meet has a story, if not one, probably many. And it really is back to being a little bit curious, a little bit persistent, and being a little bit charming, and possibly sometimes being a little bit forceful, that you'll get those stories, because people do want to tell their stories. And often, in my experience, over 30 years as a journalist, nearly everyone wants to tell you their story if you can, you know, find a way of really essentially giving them a reason to tell you it. And really in community radio, there's some terrific reasons to tell your story, and, you know, it's not like you're not bailing them up as some sort of criminal or anything. You're really actually more or less on their side. So I think, you know, be persistent, be curious, keep asking questions, always be polite, but never underestimate in the back of your head that you are the fans' representative and you have power. Power is possibly a forceful word in the context of what we're talking about tonight, but you do have power and you do have the capacity to use that power when you want.
Oh, wow, excellent. Thank you so much for that. I am just
that's about it from me, but I'm happy to keep talking.
Sorry, I thought if you've got more to discuss, the floor is yours. Oh, hello, you there? Oh.
Well, I was just going through a few more of the slides of our new course.
Of course, please.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go right ahead.
Hello?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you, Danny. Yeah, it's good. Look, I'll tell you what, I don't really think I need to say too much more about the new course. I think we're in the process of recruiting for the new course. I reckon it starts in March, and I don't expect to have big numbers, but I do think that that this is going to be a successful course. And I would like to say that that we'd love to use in some way and help in some way the community radio networks, because I sincerely believe, and that's why I'm involved with 2SER, that I sincerely believe that that there is so much that you guys can do to help bring people together in a time when it's, without getting too airy-fairy about it, these are difficult times for a lot of people, and a lot of people want to feel part of a community. And clearly one of the key ways that people feel part of a community is through sport. And I know that from my own experiences, and I know that from my own private experiences, and also my own professional experiences. And I often, back about 10 years ago, we used to talk a lot, and I think about covering school sport. And I really can't, this is at the Sydney Morning Herald, and we never really got around to doing it properly. But I think in these digital environments, it's quite cheap. I mean, we used to say, well, we can't afford to do it. We can't really use that argument anymore, because there's lots of citizen reporters out there. It's really about forming their capacities to do it and having the willingness to do it rather than having the money. One example that I always think about when we're talking about the power of community is in Texas there's a media organization called the Texas Tribune, and it looks at its audiences this way. It started off by saying there are 221 or something like that school boards in Texas, and those school boards have thousands of they have hundreds of pupils, and those pupils have hundreds of parents, and there are elected officials who are. So when you think about it like that, there is literally an audience. If you started writing about education at that sort of level, at a school board level in Texas, you have a potential audience that's probably as big as the Sydney Morning Herald is right now. And you can apply the same sort of logic to sport. There are literally hundreds of people, thousands of people who are connected through sport at a community level. And the mainstream media really doesn't do anything about it. So there's a great opportunity, again, for community radio and community websites off of community radio to fulfill those opportunities. Because, if I could go to a place and go, right, where did my son's soccer team go or my daughter's basketball team go against other teams in the region, and see that in a kind of context of media rather than the emails that come around, I think I'd be very into that. And I think that's another way of people connecting, and having pride in what they do, and, and pride in their kids and all that sort of stuff. So it's all very important. I think I've said enough. Thanks, Danny.
Peter, thank you so much for that. It's obviously a subject that we could go on and on and on about, and I think it's a very worthwhile one too. And as you suggest, sport is very much, it's a sort of like an equalizer, if you will. It's one of those things that can sort of transcend the boundaries that sometimes will exist through different strata of society. So I agree with you. It's a really important thing. And I think you also make some really good points there in regards to the connecting with people and using sport as the way of connecting. So thank you very much. That's Peter Fray there from the University of Technology, Sydney. And good to see that the course has that relationship with 2SER, who are based at UTS in Sydney. Now, Peter, I'm leaving your microphone on. I've also turned on Davey J's microphone and Jeff Pistola's microphone, and that is because we've got a couple of questions here that have been answered in the text box, but I'll have a go at them anyway. Nick Brown from Alpine Radio. G'day, Nick. Great to have you here. Your question to Davey J was, do you have a talkback segment inviting the audience to call in? And although you've answered that in text form, Davey, I'll get you to answer it vocally as well.
Yeah, no problem. Our station policy is that we don't do talkback. Just basically, yeah, it just cuts out a problem that may come up. You know, it could be talking, and all of a sudden it could take a change. And plus, people are producing and presenting their shows themselves. There isn't that ability to do the screening pre-going to air, so that's the main reason why we don't do it. But to get around that, we certainly lean heavily on our Facebook page. We direct people to there. We hold conversations there about it. We also invite people to ring when music's on, if they've got something in particular they want to talk about, or something that they've heard and will need to find information about. So we can sort of get around it. We just sort of acknowledge that when the opportunity comes about to get back on air, that they've called, that question was asked, and we answer it that way.
Excellent. I've got another one here. This one's directed towards Davey and Pistols. Pistols, I'll let you have a crack at this one first. This is from Chris Ball. G'day, Chris. How you going? What's been the experience with programming, with your sports programs, using that engagement with your community as leverage for sponsorship?
Well, actually, we've been pretty successful with the Huddle. We've had regular sponsors who've come on board, and particularly with our broadcasts of the Saturday football, that's just gone gangbusters, and we have about 5 or 6 sponsors who've come on board, giving us some pretty good assistance financially, which we've been able to put back into improving our equipment. And we also have sponsors who've come on and actually provide us with vouchers, because we do actually, for the game of the day, we give away a voucher of products or whatever services for the player of the day, which we pick. So yeah, it's been a pretty good tool for the community, because they can see the worth in being involved in community radio, because we are a growing thing, and they found it worthwhile for their product to be endorsed or be part of our promotion. So as far as we are in Adelaide Hills, yes, mind you, we've only been going 2 years. This will be the 3rd year we're doing our sporting program side of things, but I can only say it's certainly the growth's on its way, and looking forward to more businesses getting involved. Excellent.
Davey, how about for you, mate? And keeping in mind that you've also been able to use your win at the 2016 CBAA Awards as increased leverage.
Well, look, we've been really, really fortunate from the day one. We've had a really, really strong sponsorship arrangement with a local company who are the directors are heavily involved in local sport themselves. So they were able to see the natural links that our show had with their sport. One of them's involved with the local basketball team. Another one's involved with one of the Premier League teams here. They present events. They present the Dobell Cup, the chess championships, the national chess championships each year, and Big Boys Toys here in Canberra, big expo there. So we've been able to get on board, and they've just looked after us for all our access fees and all of that kind of stuff. I'm more than happy to do it. Haven't tested the waters specifically outside of this arrangement, but again, my view is that if you find the people with those natural links to getting your product on there and getting them to support and see what you're on about, I think it makes it easier. We've got a lot of people who are involved in sponsoring community sport throughout Canberra, and I don't think it'd take too much once you get in their rear to donate a couple of $100 here and there throughout the season to make sure that you're going on air, especially if it's promoting their interest in a way. Just on the flip side of that, we work really, really really closely with our station management about that. We're not encouraged to go out and snag sponsorships on our own without their approval. So we work closely with them to make sure that what we're doing matches up with what the view of the station is. So we work together in that regard. But again, they can see the benefit. The station sees the benefit. They've even got a list of people that they're even keen to sort of get involved and try and get some leverage through an arrangement with the local University of Canberra, their sports media section and that kind of stuff as well. Similar links to what Peter was sort of talking about, getting involved with big tertiary educations and sort of going from there. And then it feeds itself, because I want to leave the legacy of the Big G up in someone else's hands eventually, and just have it for them to run it and for it to be a legacy program on that. So that's my dream, and sponsorship's part of that. So if we can all see the same vision, it becomes a lot easier making that happen.
Oh, that's a really great way of looking at it. Chris Ball has brought up a really interesting point that was responded to by Adam Watkins there in the text boxes, but I'll just bring it up now. Word was mentioned earlier, diversity. Really interested how stations go about attracting women to host sporting programs. I think I'll open that up to all of you, and I might just throw that one to Peter Fray first. What would be your tips in regards to getting women involved with sports broadcasting? Peter, you there?
You know, it's an interesting thing because a lot of the students I have are women. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'm here.
Yes, I can hear you. There must be a bit of lag.
Yeah, oh, sorry. It's an interesting thing. It's a good question because, yeah, sorry, it's probably my end. It's a really interesting question because there was obviously a growing. I think this is going to be a watershed year for female sport. Given what's happening, look at what the coverage of the Big Bash is getting for women, and we've got the female AFL coming up and various other things. So this is a watershed year because it's interesting, at a grassroots level, at a student level, a lot of my students are women. A majority of my students are women, and a lot of them are interested in sport. And I think it's just breaking it down, and I think a few exemplars of, Tracy Holmes being obviously a classic example, but a few examples at the community station level of female journalists being told, or female presenters being told, yeah, it's okay, you can do this. Because I think the only really, sometimes it just boils down to be just that women are a little bit more reticent. It's clearly a blokey world. I mean, here we are. How many women are talking tonight? And no offense, Danny, I'm sure you do lots of programs with women, by the way. But it's true. It's a kind of blokey world, and there's no real reason why that should be the case. Because let's face it, you go to the AFL, you go to the soccer, you go to community sport. There's plenty of women there. So often they're in the majority, and often the women do a lot of the work. I know I used to be involved in an AFL club in Sydney, and that place would have collapsed without 2 or 3 key women involved with nippers in Sydney. And again, most of those clubs would collapse without women. So I do think that it's just a question of saying, hey, yeah, okay, it's nice that you're behind the scenes a bit, but get out there. You've got great opinions, and don't be scared to share them. And I think we're seeing that. If you look at the commercial TV stations and radio stations, but TV stations in particular, there's a lot of female presenters out there now, and that's very much a trend. So it's, I think that can easily be replicated, if not surpassed, at a community level.
Can I just say something?
Of course, Pistols.
Well, obviously in Hills Radio we don't have female presenters in the sports section as such. We do actually have regular female guests, because with our show on the Huddle, we usually invite them in for a half-hour stint for them to promote their sport. Netballers, hockey, as Davey said, the roller derby girls, and they're quite interesting when they come in, and also the ladies gridiron. So we do actually cater for them in the community sport and Hills Radio film about them actually being part of the presentation team. But when they do come in their radio studio interviews, they certainly put the sport out there, and actually very incisive as Peter said, about their sport, and very passionate about their sport. So as that's the role that we sort of use them at the moment at Hills Radio, sporting coverage, but we certainly down the track, it'd be great to have one of them as a full-time presenter.
Excellent. Davey J, I'll let you finish that one off. Do you have anything to add to that one?
Mate, I think just further on what Peter said, there is so many faces now on commercial TV with roles for women right across all of the networks. The big sports are coming online with more free-to-air coverage. I think the important thing is the encouragement at our level and connecting it to that level to say, hey, even if you don't want to go to that level, you still have a pathway and an opportunity to do it. So we certainly encourage females from everywhere, and we like to get them to talk about sports that they aren't involved in. So if we have someone like Sarah McCapian from the Capitals Academy come on, I'll invite her on at another time to come and co-host with me and talk about other sport as well, and that kind of stuff. So making sure it's not that specific knowledge of one sport, it's that general sport, and you can see it, you can hear it in the first few syllables of when someone who is passionate about sport and a female knows what they're talking about sport. You say, that was great, that was excellent, please come back and make my show awesome. So it works a treat on many levels.
Oh, excellent. And just in response to that, Donna Collins from Nambucca Radio says her show is on Sunday nights 5 to 7. It's called That's a Wrap. Adam Child mentions a couple of awesome podcasts featuring female presenters, Ladies Who League and The Outer Sanctum. I'll try and find a bit more about that and send everyone some links in regards to that. And I flicked through a few programs there, just should hopefully be showing up on your screen. Sports on 3CR in Melbourne with Anna, Regina and Dan. There is also a great bit of AFL coverage on Australia's only LGBTI radio station, another one from Melbourne, Joy 94.9. They always cover the Pride game there, and that's part of the program Chicks Talkin' Footy, joy.org.au if you want to go and check out that podcast. And the other final example I had there was a young lady by the name of Bethany Atkinson Quinton, who's there active in several community radio stations in Melbourne, most notably PBS at the moment, but also does some work for Triple R. She's involved with everyone, does stuff with all the best. And a podcast called Her Game, which is available on the All the Best Radio website. And I don't know if we've got another couple of mentions of programs on there, but we've gone over time a little bit, so I better call quits on it then, better blow the full-time whistle, as it were. Big thanks to Jeff Pistola of the Huddle on Hills Radio 88.9 FM, Davey J of the Big G Up on 2XX, and Professor Peter Fray, the Professor of the Practice of Journalism at the School of Communications at UTS. As part of the follow-up email to all of our participants here at this evening's webinar, I'm going to send links to the Huddle page at the Hills Radio website, the Big G Up Facebook group, and also information about the UTS Sports Media course, a new course that's starting up to equip students with the skills, techniques and knowledge to build on a career across multiple areas of sports journalism. But thanks once again to our presenters. Absolutely fantastic to have you guys here. Seeing as tomorrow is a public holiday, I'll leave my follow-up thank you calls until Thursday. But just absolutely wonderful to have you involved as part of this evening's webinar. And thanks also to everyone who was involved as just participants here and coming and get involved. Next webinar is Wednesday, 8th February, the fundamentals of free and easy digital audio editing. Next one after that, Wednesday, 22nd of February, easy tricks to grow your music program and network. Keep your eye on CBAA e-news to find out more information about those and how you can register. But we better go now. The whistle's blown. On behalf of the CBAA and the CMTO, this is Danny Schifferly saying good night.